better day starts with a better breakfast at Subway. Choose what you love, from the better-for-you Western egg white muffin melt to the delicious double bacon and cheese omelet on toasty flatbread. Try it with juicy tomatoes and spicy jalapenos. Let Subway help you build your better breakfast today. Subway. Eat fresh. The BS Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects.
First of all,
this is the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
It might be cool, I don't know. And if it's not, I don't care.
The BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Bill Simmons works for ESPN. He's also named the sports guy, and he writes a comical sports column. He must be a popular dude.
The BS Report.
It's got a real dirty sound, like a rusty steak knife cutting through a well-aged steak.
Now.
Here's Bill Simmons.
Welcome to the BS Report, another sunny day in Southern California. And actually, I'd like to thank God because the weather is absolutely killing it this week. ESPYs tonight. Big day for ESPN. More importantly, a big day for me because all my bosses are here. Nobody will be able to listen to this podcast. So let's push the envelope today and call JackO. He's at work, our old buddy, Yankee friend, on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. He does know we're calling today because we're calling him to discuss the tragic death of George Steinbrenner.
Complex Litigation, this is John.
Oh, Johnny. It's at half-mast today for you.
Yes, sir. Yes,
the boss is dead. Long live the boss.
Indeed, yes. Tough week for the Yankees, Bob Shepard and the boss.
I hope you're not next.
Yeah, really. I know these
things come in threes. You got to watch out, Johnny.
I know. I hope someone's monitoring me as we speak.
Were you upset that ESPN refused to cover Steinbrenner over the last 24 hours?
Refused to cover it?
Yeah.
Oh, what do you mean? It's been wall to wall, hasn't it?
Oh, that's what I meant. I'm sorry. I forgot. It's been totally suffocated.
Well, they needed something to cover 24/7 now that the LeBron situation is over with. So
we were talking about at dinner last night. Could he have picked a better day to die? I mean, seriously.
No,
and I say that in a non-comedic way. I mean,
right.
If you're an 80-year-old baseball legendary owner, player, whatever,
mm-hmm.
and they're like, here's the calendar, here are the 365 days you could die,
mm-hmm.
and you have to pick a day where you will get the most attention, coverage, because there's nothing else going on,
right.
and nobody will have anything else to talk about.
Every baseball writer is all in one location and readily accessible to ESPN cameras.
And you have all the players there who are ready to give the sound bites. You would pick Tuesday of the All-Star game. That would be the day you picked.
It was perfect, right? It wasn't like they had to cut away from coverage to go to any scores or highlights from any other games.
Right.
He couldn't have timed it better.
It was ESPN.
And he timed it perfectly for his family in terms of estate taxes, too.
Do you think ESPN killed him? They looked at the schedule and they were like, we got nothing on this Tuesday. The LeBron thing's over. Let's go kill Steinbrenner.
It's the slowest day in sports. We need something.
Joe Mead.
Yes.
Joe Mead. We could keep that. That's funny. They know I'm kidding. Obviously, ESPN didn't kill George Steinbrenner.
Of course not.
They just rooted for it to happen.
Absolutely.
No, they didn't. I'm kidding again. I kid. It's kidding. I'm court jester. Were you surprised, much like Michael Jackson last year, where you had somebody who had some pretty major indiscretions?
Yeah, I mean...
And was not liked.
Right.
And now things came full circle, and he kind of proved the old adage that the longer you stick around, the longer people will forget all the bad things that you did.
Absolutely. I've been shocked, really, at the sudden deification of him, because I would say that my own relationship with him, and not that we ever met, but in terms of being a Yankee fan, is much more complicated than some of the glowing articles and TV pieces that I've seen.
Right.
And I ironically, or maybe not ironically, but I just recently finished reading the Bill Madden book, Steinbrenner, The Last Line of Baseball.
Ooh, that's another suspect of somebody who might have killed Steinbrenner. That book came out like a month ago.
Yeah.
We got a lot of this is like a Without a Trace or one of those episodes. We got to figure out who killed him.
It's like Agatha Christie. There's a lot of different suspects. I've just read that book, and I mean, if you read that book, yes, he gave a lot of money to charity and what have you, but he really wasn't like a good guy.
No, not until the later years.
I mean, a terrible boss, and I mean, the stuff he did to people in his employ, I mean, just impetuous and throwing these tantrums and firing people, and I'm not even talking about firing guys like Billy Martin or general managers who he literally like almost drove to suicide.
Yeah.
I'm talking about like, if a secretary looked at him the wrong way in the office or he was in a bad mood because they lost some big game, he would just fire people randomly, willy-nilly.
Yeah.
Now, he would blow up and fire them, and then like 12 hours later, he would regret it and try and bring them back. But in the meantime, he would completely savage somebody and kick them out into the street.
Yeah.
And now and not to mention the fact that I appreciate as a Yankee fan Steinbrenner's willingness to throw money around and do whatever it took to win, essentially.
Yeah.
He could have made, he makes like, there was something I saw on ESPN, I think it was last night, where in revenue over the past several years, I forget what the time frame was, but the Yankees have made $3 billion, $1 billion more than the Red Sox.
Yeah.
He could have put all that money in his pocket, but he was always willing to have the highest payroll in baseball and spend money on guys. But
gotta respect it.
But if you look at his legacy, I mean, having been a Yankee fan since I was a kid in the late 70s, I mean, he made the team a freaking laughingstock with moves that he made and firings that he carried out. And for the 80s, from 1978 until 1996, they were terrible. I mean, they were some really lean years. I remember.
Well, hold on, though. But so you got the months and death screwed up the '79 season.
Yes.
I don't remember what happened in '80, but they did make the World Series in the strike year, and that's when the wheels came off after that.
It was after '81.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, then he got desperate and just reached on free agents and made idiotic trades. I mean, the list of young guys they traded away, from Doug Drabeck to Jay Buhner for guys like Ken Phelps. I mean, that's the legendary one.
Yeah.
The whole debacle with Dave Winfield, which was just a disaster.
Yeah.
Which I thought it was funny on ESPN when Winfield was like speaking glowingly of Steinbrenner.
I was going to ask you about that. Not to sidetrack you for a second, but I actually watched that and I was thinking, are you kidding me? This guy tried to frame you.
The guy paid a gambler to dig up dirt about him spreading a venereal disease to somebody's mother or something, and now he's like, oh, what a great man he was. Really? And when you were suing him for not paying your foundation enough money and everything else? Come on.
Carl Ravitch, I think it was Carl Ravitch, was like, so, in recent years, you and the boss have really patched things up, and Dave Winfield's like, yeah, we became friends.
Yeah,
like, what? How are you friends with him?
So weird. But in the 80s, they were a laughingstock, and his 5 times firing and hiring Billy Martin and promising Yogi Berra you'll be here all season no matter what, and then firing. I mean, Yogi Berra is like the most iconic living Yankee now.
Yeah. He
fired him 16 games into the season, so Yogi Berra wouldn't set foot at Yankee Stadium for 15 years. Lou Piniella is like a son to him, and he basically drove him out of town. Yeah. I mean, he did some awful things, and basically what his redemption was, or his rejuvenation, and why he gets the glowing plaudits for being a winner, is the Yankees of the late 90s, which by and large were the responsibility of Gene Michael and to a lesser degree Buck Showalter.
Well, and then also some of the foundation for that was laid when he was knocked out of baseball.
Exactly.
For 3 years,
I was just going to say, when he got suspended, he couldn't do anything, because if he was there, he probably would have been itching to trade Bernie Williams and Mariano Rivera and other young prospects for some aging over-the-hill veteran. So
he would have gotten in on that Jose Canseco, Ruben Sierra when those guys were available in '92.
Right.
He would have traded. We just traded Derek Jeter and Bernie Williams.
Is there any doubt Bobby Bonilla would have been a Yankee in that time period?
No question. None.
So, I mean, the Yankees of the late 90s sort of saved his reputation, and ironically, he probably had very little to do with it, actually.
It's really strange, because in other, I guess, vocations or whatever, like, if this is a politician.
Right.
Like, let's not to compare it to Nixon, but let's say Nixon.
Good one. Like, it's a fair comparison, probably.
Nixon, once your reputation is mud, it's mud.
Right.
Elliot Spitzer is like not going to be the governor again.
Nixon always had a famous thing. They always said, "Oh, Nixon's making a comeback," and he, wrote these academic foreign policy books, and was allegedly sort of a respected elder statesman at the end. But it was tough to get beyond Watergate. Somehow Steinbrenner was able to get beyond all the tabloid nonsense of the 70s and the 80s to be like this lionized figure now. It's weird. He was
like Dan Snyder on steroids and HGH 30 years ago. But here's the thing though. I can't get over the Winfield thing. Like, to me, that's like the deal breaker for any glowing Steinbrenner thing. Like, God rest in peace, or what?
Right. God rest his soul. Yes.
God rest his soul. I'm sorry, I was out late drinking last night.
Right.
Can't really totally speak English. you know, RIP, all that stuff. But the bottom line is, if you're going to talk about this guy for 24 hours, it seems like Winfield should be in the first paragraph of everything. This is an owner who tried to frame one of his players. Right. It's unbelievable. Yeah. He was kicked out of baseball for 3 years, right? Was it 3 years?
Although in the Madden book, they make a good case that he kind of, although he did some shit, you know, just the association with the gambler and paying the gambler was a bad thing, and he deserved to get suspended. That Fay Vincent kind of railroaded him in that, and Steinbrenner's lawyers felt that he had a pretty good case for like a major lawsuit, but he didn't want to go forward with that, and they thought he had like a lock solid case because Fay Vincent basically, and the investigator, I think it was John Dowd, violated basically every constitutional right that he had as an American. But,
yeah, that would have been a good lawsuit.
Yeah, and it would have basically shaken baseball to its core. So
that was another thing that got casually thrown around, because I watched some of the Steinbrenner coverage yesterday. I was going through emails, and they were talking about when he got kicked out of baseball, basically.
Right.
There was a standing ovation at Yankee Stadium.
Yes.
People were euphoric that this guy was no longer in their lives, running their favorite baseball team.
Right. And you know, when he fired Billy Martin once in I think it was in '78.
Once, he did it 4 times.
No, I know, but I think I'm trying to remember which
one of those was. Yeah,
it was in '78, I think, when the crowd came with signs and they booed and were like, "Fire Steinbrenner," because people love Billy Martin.
Yeah.
And that's why he had to do the idiotic thing of saying, we're going to bring Billy Martin back as the manager in 1980, and Bob Lemon is going to be the GM. And he didn't bother to tell Bob Lemon or his current GM either of those plans.
That was great.
Until it was announced by the late Bob Shepard at Old Timers Day.
It was great. You know, my buddy Gus emailed me yesterday, the biggest baseball fan I know. And anytime someone dies, whoever finds out first, we always email the other, how's the so-and-so era for you?
Yeah.
So he emailed me, and I was like, you know what? It was pretty freaking memorable, the Steinbrenner era. I got to give it a thumbs up. And he was like, I feel the same way. It was. You can't say that. What was it? 35, 36 years. You can't say it wasn't memorable.
The other thing that he deserves credit for is he bought the Yankees for $8.57 million from CBS.
Yeah.
The CBS had a big thing that they wanted it to be $10 million because then it looked like they broke even. But according to this book, it was really about $8.5 million in real money, of which he put up about $168,000 of his own money.
Is that true?
Yes. And he put together the organization and all the money guys, and it was backed up from some money from his father's shipping company. But actual cash out of pocket was like $168,000 from him. The numbers today range from between 100 to 200,000, but I think like the accepted figure is about $1.68, and now the team is worth conservatively $1.5 billion. That is a good investment, sir.
Good job by you, George. You turned the investment around.
I mean, that is some good business right there.
Do you want to hear my Uncle Rick's take?
Sure.
Biggest Yankee fan I know.
Mm-hmm.
None of the kids want to run the team. Everything is all set up for a sale within 3 years. Write this down. Steve Cohn, parentheses, SAC Capital.
He's going to be the new guy?
That's his prediction for the sale.
Yesterday on The Fan, somebody asked Francesa if he thought that they would sell the team, and he claimed that his sources told him that a couple of years ago when Hal and Hank basically took over the team, they had the team appraised, and the appraiser or the evaluator or the business analyst said that the Yankees and Yankee Stadium were worth about $3 billion.
So you would buy everything together, right?
Oh yeah, like the whole empire, the whole Yankee empire.
I'm down with that. That figure sounds fair to me, and actually they'll probably get more.
It's about $3 billion, and when they heard that it was $3 billion, they decided to hang on to it.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know that they have the same passion for it that he did. Hank might, but Hal's really like the brains of the organization.
Yeah, but then you get the feeling they hung on. You know, obviously this guy hasn't been in good shape for.
He's alive, right?
Yeah, it's the last. I would say from about A-Rod on. Even the A-Rod signing, he was conspicuously, we were doing all the research for that when we were thinking about writing a movie about it, and Gammons and Buster got all the inside dirt. Like, Steinbrenner really wasn't involved at that point. It was Cashman, and I think Cashman made 2 calls to him, and Steinbrenner was like, get him. And that's like all he said. Then went back to eating oatmeal. But I think I have a feeling these kids hung on to the team because it was Dad's team, and they never would do that to him. You know, there was another stroke of. There's 2 more stroke of good lucks here for the timing of the death. Which if we're going to do the Agatha Christie thing, the real estate laws change, or the tax,
state taxes, yeah. After
it changes
January.
in 6 months.
Right.
So I got to throw them on as suspects.
It said in the paper today that they basically, by dying when he did, that it saved his family about $500 million in taxes.
Here's another suspect. Me and Connor Shell and the rest of the 30 for 30 producers. We have a documentary called House of Steinbrenner.
See?
That a very talented lady named Barbara Koppel did. And it was going to run in, I think, the week before the baseball season ends. And now, obviously, we have to redo it and film new footage for it and stuff. But the timing of that was impeccable.
See, you guys are on the list, too.
The timing of it was crazy. It really was. And I also, he had a good run.
Plus, you have a list of about 500 disgruntled employees.
That's true. I think that, much like Michael Jackson, I think he would have been very pleased. And
the coverage.
The response, the fact that the Yankee fans did basically what the Michael Jackson fans did, which was, you know what, the guy made some great music.
Right.
We choose to remember that.
Well, let's just look at the good stuff.
Yeah.
Although the backlash started today, the backlash to the coverage already, because the New York Post, Joel Sherman did the full, let's look at the warts and all picture of him, basically.
Yeah, and then the bloggers will get involved today.
Yeah.
And the snarky internet comms and that kind of stuff. Like, who are we deifying again? And then the bullet point list of all the stuff he did.
The litany of all the things that he did, yeah, definitely. No question.
I think, we were kids when it was happening, and it's really hard to explain to people who were, 30 and under, how crazy it was when he kept firing and hiring Billy Martin.
I was thinking about that yesterday and reading the stuff online about it, and having read the book Steinbrenner and some other stuff lately about the 70s Yankees. If it happened nowadays, ESPN would have to create a whole separate channel. There'd be like an ESPN 5 just dedicated to controversies involving the Yankees.
Well, really, it would have driven ratings on Baseball Tonight to new heights. We would have had like a Steinbrenner expert. It's like how they had Shelley Smith in Akron for 2 weeks.
Right.
We just have a reporter full time at Yankee Stadium, just with a condo across the street.
You imagine, the thing when Billy Martin took Reggie Jackson off the field at Fenway when he loafed after a ball.
Yeah.
And he called him out, and they got in a fist fight at the dugout at Fenway. Can you imagine if that was today's media age with ESPN? It would leave SportsCenter for a week and a half.
I remember watching that game live.
Really?
And it was just this world that that had never happened before, and obviously in any game I'd watched, and they didn't really have good enough cameras until the 70s to even capture something like that.
Right.
And it was, as we used to say, the old grape hologram.
Yes.
It was just staring at the TV, just confused. Those guys are in the same team. What?
Yeah. And, the whole thing with Steinbrenner just killing players in the media, calling guys out. He was Dan Gilbert before there was a Dan Gilbert. At least Dan Gilbert waited until LeBron left. Steinbrenner did it when the guys were still on his team.
Here's the best thing I could ever say about Steinbrenner. And believe me,
You're reaching.
Tough for me. Yeah, because I hate the Yankees, and I always hated him.
Totally, right.
It's sports hate. I never really legitimately hated the guy. And he did do some awesome stuff for charity, all that stuff.
Right.
In the late 90s, when the Red Sox, it was the bleakest. When we had, they were setting up to sell the team, and they were thinking about, do we keep Fenway or do we build a new one? And they were leaning toward keeping it, but not updating it in any way. And everybody was just like, can we just get a new park, please, you guys? 10,000 of the seats face towards center field. Can we just please?
Anyone?
And they weren't spending money, and this was the year before Manny, before they splurged on him. But I remember thinking that I think I even may have written a column for my old website about, man, I wish we had Steinbrenner as an owner.
Right.
None of this would ever happen if you had Steinbrenner. If this was on his watch, none of this stuff is happening. And I think, ultimately, you think the 7 titles, and they were good for 76 through 81, and then 95 until now. That's a pretty good run for an owner.
That is pretty good. You look at 37 years and 11 pennants and 7 championships. Even though they were 0 for the 80s, it's pretty good.
Well, he also took over that Yankee team in the early 70s.
Oh, yeah.
They were,
Horace
it was
Clarke
a
years.
fading franchise. It was reminiscent of the Celtics after Len Bias and Reggie Lewis died,
Absolutely.
Dead name, basically.
People forget that, but yeah, they were brutal. I mean, just brutal. They couldn't. You could get a ticket for like $5 to sit in the front row.
I'd say I'd miss him more, but really the last 6 years he was out anyway, and it
we
was
were
like,
prepared for it.
Yeah, we knew it was coming, and I thought it was interesting. Like, the guy died early yesterday morning, and ESPN immediately had all the features ready to go, and this is something I learned when I worked at the Herald.
That's already teed up.
The newspapers and the TV stations, they make this stuff ahead of time. They make a list of, it's kind of a morbid list, but anybody who's over 75 or 70 or whatever, they have all that stuff ready to go in case anything happens. So, like, you see William Knack reading this essay, staring into the camera, and it's not like they called William yesterday morning, like, hey, you got to get to a studio and read an essay and read it. Like, that was done probably in I don't know, February.
5 years ago, yeah.
Last words for the boss. You go to the podium right now. What do you say?
Well, I would say that he loved the New York Yankees. He loved the city of New York. He was passionate about winning, and he always did what he thought was the best thing to achieve a championship. That's all you really want out of an owner.
He was also belligerent and impetuous, much like yourself.
I know. I've thought about reading the book and watching old clips of him. I'm like, that's like basically what I'd be like if I owned the Yankees for the most part. I would lose my temper. I would throw things, and I would call players out and fire people, and then I would regret it in the morning. Absolutely. I see a lot of myself in him, no question.
The Winfield thing was weird because I always thought Winfield was a good Yankee and that he played well.
Yeah, but there was the whole thing that Steinbrenner called him Mr. May because he didn't do it in the '81 World Series in the clutch.
I love that. That was so good. Has any owner ever cut out his own player's legs with like Mr. May?
And it stuck with him forever.
It's so good. And then it spread to A-Rod, which was nice. He was almost handed down like a legacy key.
But A-Rod has now shed that label, as we know, and now he's a champion. So there you go.
Yeah, why did 2009 have to happen? Life was so much more fun before the A-Rod had a title and Kobe had 2 rings.
And Peyton Manning,
Peyton Manning had a Super Bowl trophy. I liked my life so much more in 2006.
This is the penance you have to pay for 2004. So
apparently,
small price to pay for you.
Apparently. All right, so that's it. We covered Steinbrenner.
All right.
Let's call our buddy House. He's waiting for us.
I got to go in a couple minutes, but I always have time for House.
It's 3-man pod.
All right. It's Joe House.
Joe House, it's a menage a pod.
Oh, no.
What's up, baby?
JackO.
How are you, buddy?
I got to confess to you boys, I'm actually a little tired right now. I just got done taking my talents to South Beach.
In the men's room at your office?
A little spent. Here in Washington, D.C.
Nice.
Birthday? Do you want to wish JackO a happy 40th, or do you want to wish him condolences for the tragic passing of George Steinbrenner?
I'd like to do both. JackO, I'm sorry about the passing of George, although he really hasn't been part of the mix for, 5 years, 6 years now?
We've been prepared for a while, yeah. Thank you, Hussey.
And you're a man.
I am a man. I'm 40.
Gundy Day.
I'm a man. I'm 40.
Welcome to the club.
Thank you.
You can look forward to increased gray hair and increasingly droopy balls.
And an increased size of my prostate. Yes.
Yeah.
All things to look forward to.
More peeing chips and less women looking your way. Congratulations.
All right. Yay.
You'll start to get sleepy at times that you never got sleepy before.
Yeah.
9:30, 10 o'clock. Like, whoa, am I nodding off on the couch right now? What's happening?
My wife got a card when she turned 40 a few months ago, and it said, when you turn 40 when you wake up in the morning, and it feels like the morning after, but there was no night before.
Oh, that's it.
I'm like, it's pretty true.
You also know you turn 40 when you wake up at 5:30 in the morning, and it feels totally right and normal, which has been happening to you for years.
Though,
yeah, so you've been 40 for a while.
Apparently.
Guys, ESPYs tonight. Any predictions?
Well, before we get to that, I want to just ask you, too, an NBA-related LeBron question.
Okay.
Has there ever been a human being on the planet that had more best friends than LeBron James?
Oh,
in all the coverage, they're like, he gets to play with his friends Wade and Bosh, and they've talked about this for 2 years. And then before that, they were like, well, he might play with Chris Paul because Chris Paul's his best friend in the NBA and was there when LeBron's son was born.
Yeah.
And then they're like, he loves New York because he's best friends with CeCe Sabathia and Jay-Z. And then he was hanging out with Kanye West, and this doesn't even count like Maverick Jackson or whatever and the rest of his entourage.
What about you forgot Carmelo Anthony?
And Carmelo Anthony.
They love each other, too, and he's also good friends with Kobe Bryant.
What's wrong with being best friends with 10 people?
It's good, but I mean...
No, it's more than 10, because then you have to bring in all the guys he's friends with from high school. And then all the guys from the Cavaliers, like you got Ilgauskas to go to Miami, and they're best friends.
Right. To me, it's like the famous Anthony Hardaway workout where it was just, like, amazing. Like, what does LeBron do to get all these people to, like, love him?
He's got a lot of friends.
I mean, is he just, like, the most gregarious guy in the world or what? Like, everybody loves LeBron. Well, not Cleveland anymore, but he has, like, 1 million friends now. It's crazy.
And then Dwayne Wade had the Mike Miller-Udonis Haslem combo. Udonis Haslem's one of Dwayne Wade's best friends, and somehow Mike Miller got dragged into this whole thing. I guess how? Because he played with them in a World Championships like 3 years ago. Yeah. He's now all of their best friends, and they've been talking about this for years. I don't get it either.
Everybody's friendly. That's
Do you think if we were all, imagine we're all 25, we've been out of college for 4 years, and we're all independently great basketball players, and we all have a chance to play together in South Beach, we'd probably do that, right?
Oh, God, yeah, absolutely.
1,000%, yes.
That's the part I keep coming back to when I want to kill him on being such a wuss for playing with somebody who might be better than him.
Deciding that he wants to be Scottie Pippen
instead of
Michael Jordan.
If he really is this close to Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh, I need more hardcore evidence that they're more than just basketball acquaintances. If they're this close, you could talk me into it a little bit.
Well, why does it matter? Why do they need to be, best friends? You could just be okay friends, and it's still the same, deliriously fantastic proposition. Let me go to South Beach for the next 3 years. I'm 25 years old, and, rake in $17 million a year.
Here's the problem. They're all single. And when you have a group like this, there has to be some sort of hierarchy for who gets the best-looking girl in the group that approaches the table or whatever. And that's where I think we could have some real problems with this. Because with us three, you guys know that the booty's always mine. And you guys get friend number 2 and friend number 3. The first booty's mine, and then we've established that.
It's been that way for years.
But LeBron... What happens if Wade and LeBron like the same half Cuban, half Armenian, 6'2" model that approaches the table and they've never seen anybody like her?
Let me put it this way to you. I think they've probably had some experience with this problem. I think that they may have, had a couple of occasions to be each other's company in a social setting.
Well, we can all agree that Chris Bosh takes, if it's 3 girls, Chris Bosh gets the ugly friend. Hey, Chris, you've got the grenade.
He's been doing that his whole career.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Chris, you got the one with the fisheye. Sorry. That's yours. We're going to take the other 2. Hey, I do think, so the ways this could self-combust, I think a woman, we could have a Tony Braxton type situation. And then obviously the last 4 minutes of the game and who gets to shoot. Those would be my 2 biggest fears for this. Right, Housey?
Yeah, I guess, I'm not sure that the woman thing, to my way of thinking, is all that big a deal. Because it doesn't...
Yeah, I'm a Celtics fan, though. I gotta search for reasons why this can't work. I'm not ready to write the decade off yet. Throw me a bone.
I thought LeBron was going to bring the girlfriend that's the mother of his kids with him.
Oh, stop it.
I don't know.
The one he never mentioned once in the 1 hour special.
Yeah. Never mentioned the girlfriend or the 500 kids sitting there. Used as props the entire time.
Has anybody explained why Greenwich, by the way?
Because they had a house that was the main place before going to where they shot that special. And it was a friend of LeBron's, and for some reason it felt comfortable there. You would have thought they would have done Norwalk or Bridgeport or something where they actually have needy kids.
Yeah, it's a little...
Greenwich, not a lot of needy kids in Greenwich.
I mean, of the dozens of obnoxious things about that program, that was one of the highly obnoxious elements that I never did get an explanation for.
I've gone the other way on it now. I think I was so horrified when it happened at the bad judgment and all the things that went wrong with it, and that it didn't make ESPN look good, obviously. But now I've come around. It was memorable, and we'll be talking about it for years, like as one of the defining bad career moves ever.
When it was announced that he was doing it in Connecticut, I thought he was coming to the Connecticut Sun of the WNBA.
You were excited there for a little bit.
Well, for sure it's an 11 on the unintentional comedy scale.
Oh God,
yeah.
I mean, now having the benefit of not feeling I like you, Bill, am over the 60 minutes that I wasted on it, and now I can't wait to sit down and sort of go through it frame by frame.
Yeah, and when you think of, like, this was clearly done in mid-June and possibly even, like, late May, and to go through that whole charade, I was talking to people about it last night, who within the industry, and the consensus, if you had to put an over-under for when was this done, is, like, around somewhere between, like, Game 3 and Game 5 of the finals. That these three all decided, you know what, we should all play together in Miami as the most cap space. And then everything that happened from that point on was toward that goal. Nobody else could have fit those three guys in, and they obviously decided to play together. So for him to go on that special and be like, this is tough. I changed my mind this morning. No, you didn't.
Yeah, that was the most ridiculous part of it. Fellas,
all right,
I got to
Johnny.
roll.
Johnny, happy birthday.
Thanks very much.
Happy Gundy Day, Johnny.
Happy Gundy Day. Sorry about the boss.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Talk to you soon.
I'll talk to you, fellas. Take care.
Right.
Bye-bye.
House.
Yeah, so you asked, we started this whole thing, and we can't help ourselves. We're going to end up talking about that LeBron thing and all the rest of it for at least the rest of this podcast and probably every single conversation we have for the next 3 years. But you asked about my prediction for the ESPYs, and I think I only have one. I predict lots of women in high heels that wear high heels once a year, walking around awkwardly, stiffly, and as though they may tumble over at any moment.
And as the soccer team stares at them. The whole soccer team's coming tonight.
The whole soccer team?
Oh, yeah, everybody.
Well, I guess, what did they win?
You know what that means, Housey? When you have people in attendance, they're probably going to win something.
Yeah.
That's how the ESPYs work. Oh, you're all coming? Okay. We'll file that away for an award.
Yeah, I've heard that. What did they win?
I would say they're going to win best moment or whatever that is.
Okay.
Best play, something like that, the Donovan Algerian goal.
All right, fine.
My prediction, I have no inside info. My prediction is that I really don't have any inside info on this. Just a guess. I just know the whole team's coming, and that usually points to things. My prediction is that he will win the award, but then bring the whole team up.
Are any of the ESPYs? I asked the question the wrong way. Are the ESPYs in Vegas?
No, they're in the City of Angels, Los Angeles.
No, can you bet on who's going to win what ESPY?
Oh no,
okay.
no way. That would be fun if you could.
Yeah.
Especially for people that work for ESPN who could easily find out the answers. It was the same thing like when you could, for a while, bet on where LeBron and Chris Bosh could go before they had to shut it down when the Chicago money skewed. And, of course, Sal and I bet on LeBron and Bosh going to Chicago.
Yeah.
And we were going to hedge that weekend with Miami. LeBron was plus 1,000 to go to Miami.
Wow.
Bosh was plus 400. And we were like, we should just hedge because I was like, if it's not Chicago, it's definitely going to be Miami. And then they took it down, and the bets were never seen again.
I'm not suggesting that anybody take this seriously, but I think it would be extremely interesting for somebody with a lot of time on their hands, like a college kid or a kid in a graduate-level program, to try and coordinate some research into the way those markets moved. Because I think, there's got to be the temptation for kind of moving these markets for some of these guys, like in the posse. Exactly.
Yeah.
You know where I'm going with it. The same thing is true of the bump that the MSG stock took, on the news that he was going to go appear in Greenwich. They were up 6% that day.
Yep.
Somebody was making money on some of that stuff.
The only thing I could say as a possible counter is that I do think that only like 5 or 6 people knew it was going to happen. Because Bosh and Wade had the same agent. LeBron has Maverick, and I think this guy Steve Stout, who is the guy that, as more of the info comes out, he's going to be the guy that I think people are going to be surprised into his role in the whole thing. I think it was just those 6. I don't even think Wes knew.
Well, so that means, you're really giving these guys a lot of credit for their capacity to be discreet on this.
I think they had the infrastructure in place to be discreet because having Wade and Bosh had the same agent, and then, LeBron had one agent, and at some point Ari Emanuel got involved in this, and that's the part that, America doesn't really give a crap. But out here in Hollywood, that was the part that everybody was like, why the hell is this guy? So he runs William Morris Endeavor, which merged a year ago.
Okay.
Their biggest competitor is CAA. Somehow Ari Emanuel was the one that put the whole LeBron TV show together with ESPN, and CAA either was cut out of it or LeBron's agent is going to jump to William Morris Endeavor. So it has to be, it's one of those two things. There's no third option. So everybody's trying to figure out, like, why is Ari involved? Now, Ari is the guy from Entourage. He's, and he's
right.
top 5 most powerful people out here now. And the thinking is that, he wanted a piece of the LeBron James pie, and he's either just stealing him or he's stealing the agents that represent him.
Well, I mean, it's possible that somebody picked up the phone and called him, right? Reached out to him. We
but
think
you don't
that
do that, though. Like, it would be like me calling, I'm represented by the immortal James Baby Doll Dixon.
Indeed.
I wouldn't do some sort of show and say, I'm going to do this with CAA, don't tell Dixon I'm doing this, and then he finds out later. Like, that's just not how it works.
Oh, and we think that went down that way? Like CAA had no idea, it caught them by surprise?
If you're CAA, do you want Ari Emanuel putting together a show for your biggest sports client?
No, but, on the other hand, LeBron, unlike any other client, those two guys are unlike any other client.
Yeah, but that basically says we don't have anybody good enough to do this, so he had to go to the guy who runs our only major competitor, and that guy put this deal together because we couldn't have done it.
Well, how about this? Do you think that Ari Emanuel is happy having his name associated with that thing?
Oh, absolutely.
It was a debacle.
They don't consider it a debacle. That's the thing, is these guys are on denial. I think they consider last week a success, and anybody who's ripping on the show is quote-unquote hating. Because
it got a 9?
Got a huge rating. They gave a lot of money to charity. Now, that's another part of the story that's going to come out, is that, the figure keeps floating around. Ari Emanuel said they made $6 million in ad sales. And some people in the industry think that's a little high. But they gave $2.5 million to charity, so where'd the other $3.5 million go? Like, those guys obviously flew charters to get there, so some money goes there.
It should have been $100 to charity. Why wouldn't all? Who cares about their administrative costs?
Exactly.
That better not be true. It better not come.
Oh no, it's definitely true. He said in Ad Age yesterday, or one of those advertising things, that they raised $6 million in ad sales, and they gave $2.5 million to charity. So people, in the industry are wondering, well, what happened to the other $3.5 million?
The Congress should do an investigation.
The whole thing is shady, and I just can't believe that they would think, like, if they had to do things over again, I can't believe that's the way they would do it. And also, like, just wait until Dan Gilbert. Wait until the Dan Gilbert volcano erupts again.
It's a great volcano.
Well, he's sitting on, 200 stories and skeletons about LeBron's 7 years there. And obviously he won't be dumb enough to do another angry letter.
Yeah.
And sound like
it only cost him $100,000. It wasn't that's not a big deal for him.
Yeah, but it wasn't good because it deflected attention away from what LeBron did, and then it painted him as a bad guy, and then it turned into this whole racial discussion.
It was short-sighted for sure.
Totally short-sighted. If it was a buddy breaking up with a girlfriend, you tell the guy to hit send later and maybe send the email there.
Yeah, exactly. Put it in draft, Dan. Put it in draft.
But that's not going to stop him from leaking about 40 stories to Windhorst, our boy at the Cleveland Plain Dealer, who killed it for a month and a half.
He really did. God bless Brian Windhorst. He killed it.
So he can leak all those stories to Windhorst, and Windhorst can write a giant feature, and they will never know that the stories came from Dan Gilbert.
And the number one story that everybody in America is waiting to get some kind of confirmation on.
Careful.
It's the distraction in the playoff story.
Yes, okay.
I said it right.
Yeah, you said it right.
I'm a professional, my brother.
What happened between Games 3 and Game 6?
What happened?
And, when we were talking about the questions that should have been asked LeBron during that special, and I love Wilbon, I said this to him yesterday when I saw him, like, the first question has to be, what happened in the Boston series?
I agree.
I know you just agreed you're going to play with Miami, but LeBron, let's start with, what happened in the Boston series? How did you go from you had a 2-1 lead and you won by 30 points in their home floor to losing 3 games in a row and ripping your jersey off at the end of Game 6? What happened? Make him answer that question.
It's a great question.
This is why they don't allow me on Studio Show's house. Because my second question would have been, when did you decide to leave the Cleveland Cavaliers? That moment? And then my third question would have been, when did you start talking with Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade about possibly playing together? And then my fourth question would have been, why didn't you just announce on July 1st that you were going to do this? Why go through the charade of all the meetings?
Well, I have now, based on our conversation today, come around to a line of thinking on that question.
Okay.
Which, in view of this Ari Emanuel layer to the whole thing, what if the strategy was to create a villain, to rebrand LeBron momentarily as a villain, to create, this association with Bosh and Wade in Miami as, kind of a villain team, a villain franchise.
Yeah.
And with knowing all along that the way out for LeBron and his brand, maybe later this summer, maybe during the season, is to sit down with Oprah.
Oh, Whitlock would be so happy. I think Whitlock might have predicted this on Twitter too.
Well, I love Whitlock and I love his Twitters. And if I just repeated his line, all due credit.
No, I'm
to
saying that would be Whitlock that would be his ideal and most favorite possible scenario from this whole thing.
I think
LeBron. Well, here's the thing. Now, if you look at the arc of different superstars over the years, and especially let's look at one, Mr. Kobe Bryant.
Yep.
So he has that trial happen after the 3 rings, not the trial, the accusation, which obviously you wouldn't intentionally want anybody to accuse you of that. But that whole thing, he's kind of an outcast. People are against him. And then there's kind of the turnaround the other way. He has the 2 years of kind of paying his dues for what happened, for Shaq getting forced out. He's persona non grata as an NBA superstar. And then he comes back. He gives himself the Black Mamba nickname. Kind of becomes a little bit of a badass. And then people come around, and all of a sudden it's cool to think he's cool again. Maybe could they have possibly been thinking about that?
You know what? I want to parse that a little bit.
Okay.
To me, he only got cool, and he only, sort of cleaned up. His image kind of improved as they started winning.
Yeah.
And that only occurred when Pau Gasol arrived. So again, Chris Wallace.
Yeah, thank you, Chris.
Chris Wallace should get a cut of Kobe's PR money.
The Kobe 81-point game, in my opinion, was when he kind of re-arrived as, maybe you don't feel totally great about being my fan, but there's something cool about it. You're coming to the dark side a little bit, but not totally.
Well, I remember when he was going through his kind of Hamlet about whether to stay in L.A. or go to Chicago.
Yeah.
And he kind of rightfully took a bunch of abuse for that.
Yeah.
It wasn't on the scale of this thing that we just went through with these guys, but it wasn't enjoyable. He didn't come off in a good light. He looked petulant. He looked,
I will say in his defense, I thought he was much more defensible, in my opinion, than LeBron, because the thing that never made sense, and now in hindsight looks smart, but when they made the Bynum pick, because he needed help, and they could have had, I think they could have had Danny Granger. And, they took this 18-year-old project, and at that point, they didn't have a lot of guys on the team. And I think that over everything else was what was driving them crazy. It's like, you guys are positioning yourself to be good again in 2011, and I'm going to be 34 years old.
I guess that's right. Because, the surreptitious audio tape was him complaining about Kupchak and Bynum. Yeah,
the Bynum thing was what drove him nuts, because it was the move that you make if you're the Memphis Grizzlies or the Minnesota Timberwolves. But as it turned out, the Gasol thing fell into their laps, and it turned out to be a good pick. With LeBron, here's the funny thing was I think he was justified in wanting to leave Cleveland, not because it was a small market and all that stuff, but because for 7 years they made moves that weren't great.
Yeah, I don't know about the whole 7, but for sure.
No, definitely. I mean, what year did you like?
Well, they won 66 and 60 games in 2 consecutive years. They could not get themselves over the goal line in terms of a strategy for the playoffs. They could not assemble a team for the playoffs, and 2 consecutive years, and unfortunately for them, they were the 2 years that mattered the most. They stood pat in 2009 when they should not have stood pat, and the moves they made this year
you and I went crazy
were
when that
disaster
happened.
moves.
Yeah, and you were one of the lone voices in the wilderness. I like the Jamison trade just because, they were all in at that point. Yeah, it's poker, and LeBron might leave, he might not leave. You got to do everything you can to get good guys. You were the one saying, Antoine Jameson, he can't guard anybody, and he disappears in the playoffs.
Yeah, he disappears in big moments.
Yeah. And he's not going to help them as much as people think. Joe House, on the record. I think on this podcast, actually.
I think I am on the record.
So they had a couple things. So like in 2005, they traded a future number one for Yuri Welsh. And that was like the first really bad move of the LeBron era. Then in 2006, they had all that cap space, and they signed Larry Hughes, Daniel Marshall, and Damon Jones, and then signed Z for more money than he probably should have gotten. And then it went to 2007, 2008, unable to improve the team because they were cap strung. Then they made that Ben Wallace, whatever that weird Ben Wallace trade was, that didn't really work out. Then going to 2009, they had the Serbia contract that we all couldn't believe they wouldn't trade. They basically said, we're good.
Yeah,
our team is good enough to win. It's like, you could get Shaq right now for free and have somebody having Dwight Howard insurance.
That was the most indefensible. It remains indefensible. It's all those other moves. I think Cleveland deserves a little credit for trying. It was. Yeah,
in 2006, you're saying like they had to do something, and he was going to be possibly a free agent in 2 years. Or
right.
Something.
Each of those other moves, are kind of discreetly defensible.
But wait, hold on though. You watched Larry Hughes for a couple years. When they signed Larry Hughes for that big money, did you like it or did you not like it? I remember actually liking it at the time.
I did not like it because I thought the price was several $1 million per year too much.
Yeah.
But he was part of the team that got the Wizards back into the playoffs. I mean, he and Gilbert really deserve all the credit for that. So I had a soft spot for Larry, and the local paper here went crazy when the Wizards didn't step up to the plate and match because he was restricted. And I thought it was brilliant that the Wizards didn't match because the old strategy with these things. If you sign a player that's not going to take you to the next level to a big contract, it's fatal. It's fatal. It's now in 2010 it's the Joe Johnson corollary.
Right.
It used to be the Gilbert Arenas corollary. Now it's the Joe Johnson corollary.
Right.
But so I was happy to see Larry go, but I thought it made sense for what Cleveland was trying to accomplish. I thought he was going to be complimentary. I just thought they paid too much money.
Yes.
So I didn't like it in terms of how much they paid, and to use your term, that it immediately made them cap strong. But
their draft picks weren't great, and Verja was really the only killer pick they had. I liked Hickson. I mean, for what they got him, I guess that qualifies as a good draft pick. And if anything, maybe one of their big mistakes last spring was not playing him more. I thought Mike Brown should have been fired after 2009, and I think you agree with me on that. Most people seem to think he deserved one more chance, but I thought the Orlando series was a fireable offense.
I agree with that. I was prepared to see that happen last summer.
It actually reminded me of the Avery Johnson thing in 2007 with Golden State when they beat Dallas, and then they brought Avery back the next year. Like, in my opinion, you lose a series that badly when your team is just fundamentally falls apart. You can't bring that coach back. It's over.
Yeah, I mean, it was a failure of preparation.
And strategy. And and the biggest issue with Cleveland these last few years was that they had no offensive ingenuity whatsoever, and it was just play after play of LeBron having to figure out what to do.
It was stunning to see as it happened.
And he had awesome numbers in that Orlando series.
He had awesome.
It was one of his 2009 playoffs. I had that 42 club.
Yep.
Add the points, rebounds, and assists for the playoffs. It goes over. I'm telling the listeners.
I'm sorry,
because they're listening to me going, "What the S the 42 club?" Add the points, rebounds, and assists averages for the playoffs, and if it gets over 42 for 12 playoff games or more, the guy has really accomplished something. And it's harder than you think. Like Kobe's never done it, for instance. LeBron was a 52 in the 2009 playoffs.
Wow.
That's like Jordan and Wilt.
Is that true that Kobe's never done it?
Kobe's never done it.
Not one series?
No, he doesn't get the rebounds.
Yeah.
He's done it for a playoff series, but not for the whole playoffs.
Oh, whole playoffs. I got it. Right.
He had to do it for the 13 games.
Yep.
And a lot of guys are in that 39 to 41.5 range. It was funny. Karl Malone was like a 41.5 like 7 times.
That's why you knew 42 was the right number.
Yeah, that's how I arrived at the 42. And I was like, and Nowitzki in 06 was like a 41.8 or something like that. But it's funny how 42 is a good number for it. But the point is, he was awesome in 09. And, some people criticized him for not doing enough. And I don't know what else he could have done in that playoffs. So obviously, the 2010, a little different, where you watch those last 2.5 games thinking, all right, what's going on here?
Yeah, that's right.
none of us watched those games and felt like he gave every single ounce of sweat in his body to try to prevent what happened from happening. In 2009, I felt like he did.
And we talked about, while those games were happening a couple months ago, how important his sort of mindset is to the success of that team. So him showing up, with kind of a dull approach, basically, made those games losers right when they walked on the floor.
Yeah, pretty much.
Anyway.
He was the hub of that team. Quickly, there's been some horrible contracts this month. Do you want to rank your top 4 most egregiously horrible contracts?
My top 4.
What's the first one that jumps to mind?
Joe Johnson is by far the most egregious.
120.
That's franchise suicide.
Yeah.
That I just lived through that. I know exactly what that means to that Atlanta franchise. The only thing that can save them is him walking into the locker room with a gun and them being able to get out from under that contract. Because the thing that's so killer about that contract for that team, that's mostly a young team. They need to have the flexibility to put the pieces in place to emphasize and build around the guys like Horford and Josh Smith, and they had a shot at bringing back Childress. I guess they still do. I'm not sure. Actually, I think they're tapped out now.
If you were them, what would you have done?
I would have let him go.
But then replace him with who?
I don't know. Maybe nobody. Maybe sit tight on the money and see what sort of develops over the free agent period there.
Here's what I would have done. I would have called his bluff. I would have said, look, we're not giving you 6 years because you're going to be 36 years old at the end of that contract, or 35, whatever. We're not going to kill ourselves. We're going to offer you 5 years, $76 million. That's what Boozer got, I think. Here's 5 years, $76 million. If you want to get the 120, go ahead. And you're only getting the 6 year if we sign and trade you. But if you can do better, go ahead.
Well,
we'll sign other guys. We don't think that you have that offer.
I guess to me, I don't know. 5 years, 76 seems like a lot. I just, after watching him,
5 years, 76 is less than 6 years, 120.
Oh, I believe me. It's now we're just talking about the degrees of disaster.
Well, hold on though. 5 years, 76, not a lot when you consider Al Harrington just signed for $534, Amir Johnson signed for $534, Brendan Haywood got 6 for $55.
I know.
So you got to bump every dumb salary by $20 million. So he's worth 5 years, $55. So that makes him worth 5 years, $75.
And I understand. The thing that I'm having a hard time getting over is how bad he looked in those playoffs.
Yeah, he was terrible. And that whole team quit, and he's the leader of the team.
Exactly. So I would have tried to manufacture a sign and trade so they got that trade exception back. That would have been my strategy going.
I love those trade exceptions. Hey, how about that? Get the trade exception and then go get Al Jefferson.
That's the most. Well, exactly. Who knew that Al Jefferson was going to be available at this point in this way? That's the kind of thing. That's the kind of flexibility. So you pair Al Jefferson with Horford, and you have Josh Smith, and maybe you bring back Childress. That's a team you can really build around. You
bring back Childress. Yeah, you bring back Childress. You play Crawford as shooting guard. You go get J.J. Redick for 3 years, $15 million, and then you find a corner for Mike Bibby. And those are your moves for the summer.
So in 4 minutes, you and I just came up with a strategy for Atlanta that would have made them at least a serious sort of contender for the second round, third round of the playoffs for the next 4 or 5 years.
But they should have known Al Jefferson was going to be available. And if any GM who's paying attention, who's watching David Kahn, watching him admit that he's about to do dumb things. In June, he was like, yeah, these Jefferson and Love can't play together. I told Al that we're probably going to have to trade him. Okay, so David Kahn's about to trade Al Jefferson. I know that guy scored averaged 24-10 before he blew out his knee in January. And I was watching those games because McHale was the coach, and I like Kevin Love, and I love Al Jefferson from the Celtic days. And I went to a Clippers game, and that team was playing well. And Al Jefferson had to be double-teamed every single time he had the ball. And he blew out his knee. It's a 2-year injury. We're now in year 2. That is a guy who now, again, will have to be double-teamed every time he gets the ball. Minnesota had a fire sale for him. And what's funny is there's four really well-run teams right now, I think.
Yes.
San Antonio, Utah, Oklahoma City, and Houston.
Yep.
Those are the 4 shrewd teams. I would possibly throw the Celtics and the Lakers in there, but they're prone to throwing, the entire mid-level or Jermaine O'Neal doing things like that.
I'm going to give honorable mention to Miami, by the way.
Oh, yeah, okay, fair enough. But it's not like the last 4 years have been that strong for Miami.
Well, they have a championship.
True.
So,
All right, so we'll give honorable mention to Boston, Miami, and the Lakers. Anyway, those 4 teams are the shrewdest teams, and it comes as no surprise that Utah was the guy that got the team that got Jefferson, and the other 3 teams have not done anything. None of these 3 contracts are being handed out by Houston, San Antonio, or Oklahoma City.
That's right.
San Antonio did one thing. They signed Splitter, who was, by all accounts, the best center in Europe and is going to help them, and they got him for 3 years, $10 million. And everybody says that's the best signing of the summer.
Well, the best signing of the summer was the Spurs somehow inducing Richard Jefferson to leave that team.
Yeah, he hasn't signed yet either.
Well, and that's another guy. He's a guy that can make a contribution in the right kind of setting. Actually, I don't know what I'm talking about.
Well, what's funny is that
He was
terrible, but people killed him for opting out of that contract. And now I kind of think it was a smart move. If Al Harrington could get $34 million, Richard Jefferson can.
Well, the reason that it would be a smart move is because he can get a multi-year deal, 3 or 4 years. He can essentially append on.
Yeah.
So he won't make the $15 million. Nobody's going to pay him $15 million.
Well, here's the problem. Nobody wants to be a free agent next summer.
Yeah.
Because next summer is going to be lockout followed by God knows what.
Right.
And then you might have a hard cap that's worth $10 million less than right now, and it'll turn into hockey. We saw this happen in hockey.
So you got to get a deal with years on it.
You want a deal with multiple years, and that's what if you saw the deals being handed out this year.
Yeah.
People were grabbing 4 or 5 years as much as they could. Even Udonis has them, and who I think could have gotten, 2 years full mid-level or 3 years full mid-level, whatever, and he took the 4 for $20 because he didn't have to move. And
well, it looked like, was it Denver? Who made the offer to him? It was a multi-year deal that he rejected to take less money to stay in Miami.
But then you factored in, though, you get the state tax, you don't have to move. You're not giving up that much money.
Okay.
Then you get LeBron and Wade and Bosh each give you $500,000 under the table, so on and so on. Hey, am I the only one who thinks Udonis has him as a backup power forward?
He is a backup power forward. What's so controversial about that?
Well, people are saying now that this is the dream team with Mike Miller and Udonis Haslem as the 4th and 5th.
Hey, he's a very serviceable role player for that team, though. He's exactly the kind of role player a team like that needs.
Yeah, he's a 7th or an 8th man.
Yeah, what's wrong with that?
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out.
He's going to start on that team. I mean, it's not like, it's like any of the Bulls teams had. Luke Longley was a starter on that team.
Yeah, but Luke Longley had size.
I mean, whatever.
Bill Cartwright had size. Humor me. I don't want to give away the decade to the Heat yet when my Celtics are in the same conference. This Heat team doesn't have size yet, and I think that's how teams can beat them. I think you can pound them by the rim, and I think it's going to put a lot of pressure on Wade and LeBron.
Yeah, because Z is not an interior guy. Z will stand in the middle.
Z, by the way, was washed up a year ago. Let's be honest.
He'll still stroke from 18 feet.
Okay.
That's his skill. He has a singular skill. That's his skill.
They're playing the Lakers. Who guards Bynum and who guards Gasol?
We don't know yet. That team isn't done. We just need to sit tight. I thought you were a little premature. That was your problem. You got way out there. It's these 3 guys. They got to play all these minutes, and they can only put minimum level.
I was upset. Okay, I was upset. It's my team. My team is the Celtics, and I'm upset that the decade is over.
My team is the Wizards, and they're in the exact same conference. I mean,
but you're the Wizards. They're never going to be good. What do you care? You're in the lottery every year.
But I don't care. I love this team. I love Miami. I can't wait to see them.
I'm glad you outed yourself admitting that.
What?
That you're legitimately thoroughly on board with the Miami cheats.
Oh my God, I'm all over it. That's 82 must-see events for me.
It is. I'm talking myself into it. It is going to be really fun to watch these guys play.
What are you talking about?
It's going to be awesome. I can't
lie. I love the teams. I love the fact that they're the villain. I love the Miami cheats. I love the. You understood
what happened to me the last 120 hours, though. Yeah. I had to go through the 7 stages.
You did.
And actually, the podcast I did yesterday with Damashek and Hanch, I think I finally reached the 7th stage of begrudging acceptance and the fact that the 2 of the best 3 guys in the league are now on the same team, and it's going to be cool.
It's going to be cool.
I don't think LeBron totally cares about numbers, and we talked about this a little yesterday, but if like 1% of him says, you know, it'd be fun if I averaged a 27-11-11 for the season, I think he has the means to do it on this team.
Oh, my God. He could come in this summer and say to those guys, hey, let's all work together to this team goal. And by the way, as part of my contribution to this team goal, I'm going to try and average triple-double. And they sort of layer that into their whole sort of scheme and game plan. He can get it. Of course he can get it.
Well, let me ask you this. What if they don't even sign a point guard? What if they just say Chalmers will be our 1 point guard and we'll have like a 12th man who will be like your typical white guy who makes threes, scrappy, like the Chris Quinn type.
Good to go.
But what we're going to do is we're going to do the 96 Bulls where you don't – we remember the 96 Bulls threw out Harper,
yes,
Jordan, Pippen,
of course I remember.
then they bring in Steve Kerr. Couldn't they do this with this team and just have LeBron and Wade bring the ball up? Mike Miller's the small forward, and then Haslam and Bosh.
Yes, a million times yes. I never thought they needed to sign a point guard. I think that it's much more important for them to get that size in the middle and to have fouls to dole out.
They need rebounds. Yeah, they need rebounds and fouls.
Yeah, they need rebounds and fouls. That's it. I don't care about a point guard. Dwayne Wade and LeBron James are pretty good with the ball.
Yeah, they really are. I thought about this I actually was talking about it to somebody about whether LeBron would play point guard for this team and how crazy it would be if a 6 foot, 8.5, 285-pound guy was the starting point guard on a 7-win team. And basically, the 96 Bulls, they had the triangle, but it didn't really matter if they had a point guard or not. And I do think you could pull it off with this team. They could just take turns dribbling the ball up.
Right. There's no such, you don't need point guard. Who cares about it? You just have 5 guys.
Well, then now imagine, let's say they're playing Boston.
Okay.
Rondo.
Yeah.
So now Rondo and Wade are on each other.
Okay.
Ray Allen guards Mike Miller. Mike Miller can shoot over him. And then Pierce has to just suck it up and guard LeBron all over the place.
Oh, dear.
He'll be tired. He's
yes.
old. And KG on Bosh.
Uh-huh.
And then Perkins on Hazard. But, I mean, it's just Rondo is basically having to guard Dwayne Wade in that scenario, which is bad for the Celtics.
Yes.
That's how I would play it if I was Miami. I would go with the size and the fact that these guys are interchangeable. And the key to it is Mike Miller, who hasn't had a meaningful basketball moment in 5 years.
Well, I listened to quite a bit of the pod with Damashek and Hench. Enjoyed it very much. Hench made a great point about, what if they just, well, actually both you guys were talking about this. Hench mentioned that Illinois team that he loved. But this is the best possible experiment of kind of a small ball approach, maybe in the history of the league, right?
Yeah. This is the ultimate Don Nelson D'Antoni team.
Yeah. Now, and I heard the criticism, I know the criticism, that hasn't won, but it's never been tried with guys of this caliber.
It's true. All offense has never won, but as you point out, it's never been tried with guys this good. Although you could argue it's the Weston Baylor era if you're going to count the 60s. Not totally like the game we're watching now because
right.
I think defense – back then, Russell was really the only guy who played defense, and now everybody does.
Right.
I keep coming back to Game 7, though, and which was a war and which was an ugly game, but every shot was contested. There were no easy points, and it came down to the fact that the Lakers crashed the boards, and that's why they won.
Yeah.
Because they got second chances, and because KG had 3 rebounds, and Rasheed Wallace was dry heaving by the fourth quarter, and the Lakers were just bigger and stronger. And that enabled them to survive a 6-for-24 game by their best player. And I think if you go back in 2008, that's why the Celtics won. They were tougher. They controlled the rim and the paint, and they made threes. 2009, Lakers. I don't really know why the Lakers won that series. I can't even remember that much. But if you look back over the course of history, usually tougher in the middle and tougher by the rim is going to win the title, right?
Well, yes, I accept that proposition.
But we could say that the flip side would be LeBron and Wade could do what Jordan and Pippen did in 96, 97, 98, where it didn't matter that they weren't the tallest guys. They just wanted it the most, and that's why they controlled the paint and the rim.
And I think, the way I think about it, how many free throws a game do you think LeBron and Wade are going to shoot for the Miami Heat? I mean, think about how they're going to control the pace and flow of these games if each of them are getting to the free throw line 11 or 12 times a game. Think about what that does to other teams in terms of strategy. I don't there's no scenario to me that I can think of in my head where those guys, when the Heat need a basket, one of them can't get to the rim and either score or get fouled. They're the two best finishers in the league.
Right.
So that's my answer to it's a tough game. It's a knockdown, drag out. I would immediately say, okay, LeBron or D Wade, whichever of you is fresher, here is the ball. Please go to the rim and go to the rim repeatedly.
All right, so here are the 4 ways they can lose, because we mentioned 2 earlier. Ego at the end of the game. A woman coming between LeBron and Wade. It won't be Chris Bosh, because he'll be stuck with the ugliest fan. The injury, because these guys, if they do end up playing point guard the majority of the time, these guys will be carrying a big load, playing big minutes, 82 games a year, plus another 20 playoff games. It's a lot to ask. Now, LeBron's never been hurt in his life. Dwayne Wade has been hurt a lot.
Yeah.
So that would be the 3rd way. And then what was the 4th way? What's the 4th reason they could lose?
I don't know.
Oh, karma.
Oh. Well, that you could karma. Oh, right, of course.
I'm just saying karma. You know, what LeBron did to the Cleveland fans and the way he did it, it was an execution.
It was 3 turns too calculated.
It was an execution of a fan base,
and
they will never forgive him, and they're going to root for bad things to happen to him for the rest of his life.
So the big question is, can he buy back that karma by doing Tears on Oprah? Does he get it back?
Here's a couple of past historical karma references for you. Roger Clemens. The Red Sox fans wished horrible things on him for years and years, and finally got our wish when his whole life fell apart in the steroids HGH thing.
Yeah, but he has a World Series ring. He has 2, doesn't he?
He's a pariah. What would you want to be?
He's a rich pariah with World Series rings.
That's true, but he has no team. He's got nowhere to go. I mean,
he's in his mid-40s. What's he need a team for?
Any stadium he has on Old Timers Day, he raises his cap, he gets booed. There's Roger Clemens for you. And also outed as a liar and a double talker. Barry Bonds leaves Pittsburgh in the lurch. They all hate him. They wish terrible things on him. And, his life played out record-wise really well, but I would say that
he's another rich guy who,
he's got a size 9 head.
With his day.
Size 9 head, never won a ring.
I don't know. I'm not.
Karma house. Watch out for the karma.
It's part of why I love how this has turned out and why I'm so excited for the upcoming season.
It sounds like you're going to buy a freaking Miami jersey.
Oh, my God. Are you out of your mind?
It really sounds like you're that close.
No,
You've turned on teams before. I've seen it. You turned on the Orioles.
They deserve to be turned on.
You turned on the Orioles. Why wouldn't you turn on the Wizards?
That management structure ripped my baseball away from me. I had to forswear baseball. I grew up on the Baltimore Orioles, and the Angelos management team ruined that team, and it looks like permanently. It is now a decade. We're going on 15 years. Speaking of karma, by the way, he got exactly what he deserved out of the team, and I was paid back. Speaking of karma, with the arrival of the Nationals. I'm not. The Wizards are my team, but they're just not relevant to the conversation for the next 2 years. So it's nice for me to have some focus.
I watched John Wall in a summer league game with my friend Sully.
Yeah.
Athletically, I mean, he's everything we thought he would be.
As good as advertised, right?
I do wonder, though, it did seem like and this is summer league, he's going to adjust, but it was funny watching him try the same athletic things that have always worked for him at every point of his life, even against random summer league dudes, and they weren't working. And I'm not saying he's going to, I'm worried about his potential, but I do enjoy watching the blue chippers in summer league when they come to the realization, oh yeah, everybody else I'm playing against is as fast as me. You know what I mean? Although he's faster than them, but you know what I mean?
He's still faster. I don't know. I haven't seen anything that makes me, worried at all. It's been all I've done is get excited for seeing him.
The game I watched had 8 turnovers, and I'm not saying that's who he's going to be as a pro because this happened with Derrick Rose. It's just funny to watch these guys go to the next level and realize, like, oh yeah, everybody I'm playing against is a good.
I get that. I mean, the combination of kind of not being ready. You can't prepare yourself for that level of competition, and then it's the middle of the summer and it's in Vegas and whatever. I wish 8 turnovers is fine with me.
I wish he had stayed one more year, though, as I always wish with all these guys. The only guy I felt like was really ready to come out in the last 5 years was Durant. And I felt that way about Melo, too, where it was like, all right, these guys should just be in the league. This is stupid.
Yeah, I mean, you can't – the problem is coming up with a rule that fits most situations, and you can't come up with that rule, and so you have to be willing to indulge guys that are probably not quite ready.
I'd like to have a common sense committee and be the head of it. And we review the applications, and we're like, the Common Sense Committee has ruled that John Wall is not quite ready yet, and we'd like him to return to Kentucky for a second.
You're still waiting on Obama to appoint you sports czar.
I know. I got to send him a campaign. Last thing, your wife is like 15 months pregnant right now.
Yeah, she is very pregnant.
Explain to America what it's like to go through that last month with a pregnant woman.
It's gonna be hard because I can't use the kind of candid and colorful language that's really appropriate for it.
Yeah.
First of all, it's awesome. It's unbelievably awesome.
Wow.
Just the experience of caring about that thing and what it means in terms of not caring about yourself as much. I mean,
Right.
That hasn't stopped me from getting drunk 8 of the last 9 nights, but still. So it's very cool. But it's it changes your relationship with your wife. That's the way I'll say it. In many, many, many good ways, but in some ways that are kind of,
This is like watching LeBron's decision again.
Look,
all the stammering and double talk.
This is very difficult for me.
The people who've even...
I'm taking my talent to Junior.
It is good.
All my talents.
For me, the thing that surprised me was the level of sympathy I had for my wife in the last month, just knowing like how hot and miserable she was.
That's what I mean. I don't want to. She will punch me in the face if I share some of the candid stories that I'd really like to share right now to make the point that I want to make.
Yeah.
But my focus on her and us is so different now. I'm not thinking about her and us right now. We went away for a few days just at R&R, like our sort of last hurrah. Yeah. And all of my focus as it relates to us is like, how is she feeling? Is she okay? Yeah. Is she have upset stomach? And none of it has anything to do with like our kind of relationship stuff, the things that were important to the two of us and got us together and kept us together.
If your kid doesn't have an apostrophe in his first name, I'm never talking to you again. That's all I'm saying.
There's going to be a lot of different ways you can take the kid's name. It's a great name. I can't wait to share it with the world.
Okay. Well,
I'm going to share it with him first, and then I'll share it with the world.
Any last words for David Kahn? Are you excited to watch Ramon Sessions, Luke Rindow, or Johnny Flynn all play together?
I thought they moved Sessions. Didn't they cut him?
They cut him?
I don't know. The whole thing is so dumb. I can't think about it. It makes me dumber to think about Minnesota.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, I agree. I look at Minnesota and I'm just like, wow, you've changed 11 guys in this team.
Let me say this, though. Here's one thing that is a curious takeaway from the 2009 draft. That 5 slot apparently is haunted because every single player associated with that slot is no longer was either never affiliated with a team that it was supposed to go to or is no longer with the team. So that was the Wizards got Foy and Miller in exchange for
Rubio, and
Rubio, and right, nobody's with the. It took it took less than 12 months.
I'd have to go through history and see, because I remember Dwayne Wade was a number 5 pick.
It's a pretty high pick for neither team to have anything to show for it, and that's the point I'm trying to make. Neither team has anything to show for it.
Well, how about the fact that Minnesota now has nothing to show for the KG trade other than the top 9 protected lottery pick from Memphis over the next 6 years, or else it becomes cash, and then a Utah pick that'll be like in the mid-20s. Congratulations.
That's it. I can't talk anymore in Minnesota.
At the time, would you have rather had the package that Boston offered, or would you have rather had Odom and Bynum, which was offered by the Lakers?
Oh, Odom and Bynum. What kind of question is that?
Yeah, I would have too.
It's a no-brainer.
Although I really did love Al Jefferson. And the other part people forget about that trade is that we gave Minnesota their pick back. We had their pick that would have been unprotected in, I think, 2012. Would have been unprotected.
Huh.
So, and it was from the Ricky Davis trade with Serbiak. And in the KG trade, we gave them that pick back.
Well, don't get mad at me, but in 2012, that pick might be worth something.
I know. Well, that's why when people when I complained about the Gasol trade and the idiot Laker fans go, oh, you did the same thing with Kevin Garnett. It's like, well, first of all, Jefferson was averaging a 24-10 before he blew out his knee. And secondly, that could be one of the top 3 picks in the 2012 draft that they got back.
Yeah.
On top of another number 1 pick. And Ryan Gomes, who's an NBA player who's been bouncing around. Gerald Green at the time had at least potential, and Telfair had potential.
There's no comparison. It's dumb for anybody to argue that the Celtics' acquisition of KG is anything like what the Lakers' rape of Memphis.
Well, and then also they had 2 offers. The problem everybody had with Memphis, when Minnesota was trading KG, they had 2 offers for him. It was Odom and Bynum, or the Boston offer.
Yep.
And, looking back, I think you would say, yeah, they should have taken Odom Bynum. But, I don't think when Al Jefferson was averaging 24 a game, you would have agreed with that. But the thing with the Memphis thing that killed everybody was the timing of the trade.
Yeah, right. It changed the course of the league.
Well, but
he didn't even check the market. There was no market. He just went for the very first thing that came down the pike.
He made it on the Friday before the Super Bowl.
It was like he was in a hurry to lose his virginity.
Oh!
That's what it was. It was very premature.
LA was like, what about the rights to Marc Gasol? Oh! Oh! It done! Marc Gasol! Oh!
It was a double rainbow.
Double rainbow! Joe Mead.
Yes.
We have to queue up the double rainbow clip for any time I get excited for the rest of the eternity on the BS Report.
It's true.
Joe House, as always, a pleasure. We will talk to you soon.
I look forward to it.
So I get to sign off. Whoa!
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at Podcenter at ESPNRadio.com.
Peace out.
This concludes another episode of the BS Report. And we leave you with this final thought. Only Subway helps you build your better breakfast. Choose what you love, like the delicious double bacon and cheese omelet on toasty, tasty, foot-long flatbread. Make it your own with spicy jalapenos, banana peppers, and juicy tomatoes. And while you're here, grab lunch to go, too, on your choice of freshly baked bread, like the $5 foot-long BLT, and spice it up with fiery Chipotle Southwest sauce. Subway. Eat fresh.